Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everybody. This is the Whiskey Lifestyles Women in Whiskey series. I am Rashawn Hall, aka Bar Time Stories, your host for this series. We have another great episode in this series that we are starting today with a new brand ambassador or a new-ish brand ambassador. She can talk more about her tenure thus far at a very storied brand. So we'd like to welcome to the show brand ambassador for Four Roses, Abby Martinie. Abby, welcome to Women in Whiskey.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So, as I just mentioned, you are the new-ish brand ambassador for Four Roses, which I'm sure everyone knows, but we can talk a little bit more about the history as we go along. First and foremost, just tell us a little bit about what a brand ambassador does. I'm sure if you're anything or you've had experiences like others that we've interviewed, people often say, "Well, what do you do though?" So, what does a brand ambassador for Four Roses do?
Sure. Education is a huge one, being that presence of someone that knows the deep, rich history of the brand, being able to involve our bartending communities more, which is why my title also has a mixology on the end of it. So developing cocktail programs and really just being a face of the brand.
And this is, as I mentioned, a somewhat new role. You've been in it how many? A couple months? How many months?
Since I've been in it since April. I moved out to Kentucky this summer, and then they did the release this fall. So it's been within the year, and I've been with the company now for a little over 5. So coming up on my probably 5.5 year mark, being on the West Coast, which I can speak to a little bit, but yeah, newish is a perfect description for it.
Okay. And you mentioned you've been in the company for 5 years. So you started in sales, or you were in sales previously, and then you moved over to the brand ambassador role. So obviously that sales experience came in handy. You know how to talk about the brand. Just tell us a little bit about, tell us a little bit more about the brand. What does it mean? What does it mean to represent Four Roses? It's one of those, I think I said earlier, one of those iconic brands. Like, it's the brand everyone knows. It's kind of, for many people, a starter bourbon, which is a great place to start, and it has a very wide profile. So yeah, what is that, what is that experience like, kind of holding that mantle or holding that barrel head that's behind you?
Absolutely. I like that barrel head. It's a huge honor. My predecessor, Al Young, was the only one to ever hold the position with the company. And he was our brand ambassador and also historian. And so he literally wrote the book on Four Roses. So my position is incomparable to his. However, I feel a great pride in coming onto Four Roses as the brand ambassador. And I think that it's incredibly important to have someone in this role that can speak to the history, but also understand its future and in cocktails and again, with that bartending community. And so both really excited and just a huge honor. I mean, to be frank, it's my complete dream job. So anyone that knows me knows that this is the route that I would have seen in the stars. So I'm super happy to be in this role. And yeah, it's a dream come true.
So what is the, when you talk to people, when you're in the market, whether it's working with bartenders who obviously I'm sure know Four Roses, or if it's with consumers, I'm sure you do consumer activations as well. What is, what's the first thing you say about Four Roses, and what is a popular misconception about the brand?
First thing I say about Four Roses is usually something about the history. So it was a brand that was established in 1888. So it's had a incredibly long and wonderful run. And our distillery has been expanded, so they want to continue that, of course. I usually speak to the history and then our recipes, which for me as a bartender, that's where I got hooked. We have 10 different bourbon recipes at Four Roses, and how we're able to make those is, I know you know how bourbon is made, but for those that don't, you do need a mash bill and yeast to make bourbon, and we use 2 different mash bills and 5 different yeasts. So given those 10 different recipes, 1 mash bill, 1 yeast equals 1 recipe, we're able to make 10 different bourbons. And that really speaks to that geeky element that got me about bourbon, how we're able to have such different products and be able to mingle these bourbons together to create different products in themselves. We have our core products, which are the bourbons, the Four Roses bourbon, small batch bourbon, single barrel, and select. And then we also have our limited edition bourbons, which are pulling different ages, different recipes, and mingling those together to create cask strength whiskeys that we offer once a year. So really for me, I like to chat about our history and then also about the bourbon itself and why it's unique and why it's special.
And then just in doing that very briefly, as much as I thought I knew about Four Roses, I did not know that there were 10 total recipes. It did also make me think of something as you were talking about that I don't think I've ever thought about, and that Four Roses is one of the few distilleries that I can think of that just doesn't do a rye at all. Not even said, oh, let's do a limited release. Is there a reason for that? Is that just it's what
We
it
get Yeah, we get asked all the time. We have a high rye mash bill that's probably one of the highest rye mash bills in the bourbon market. It's a 35% rye mash bill, which is huge. But we haven't we've received, lots of questions about why we haven't done a rye yet. I think it's just a matter of keeping up with the demand of what we're doing currently. Not to say that it's ever off the table, but we don't have any plans for it as of right now.
And that leads me to another my next question. So thank you for that. A brand that has been around as long as Four Roses has, given the sheer volume that you all do from a sales standpoint, and trying to keep up with consumer demand, given that we know the recent bourbon boom of the last probably 20 years now, but the boom still continues. How does the brand maintain consistency, but also try to evolve and do different things while remaining true to its core proposition? It seems like it's this gift and the curse that you have this heritage, but you need to be able to innovate.
Absolutely. And I would speak to that by saying that that's why the 10 recipes is great, is because we're able to have that consistency. For instance, our Four Roses bourbon, the 80 proof bourbon, our flagship, has all 10 of our recipes in it. So because we have all 10 of those recipes, we are able to keep that product consistent. We had released the Small Batch Select, which is our newest product, and that is 104 proof, and it is 6 of our 10 recipes. And that was the first time that we did something non-chill filtered. So we spoke to that consumer that wanted that more of a straight from the barrel flavor profile, but we also wanted to make it consistent to where anyone could go to any retail shop and pick up a bottle of the Select and it would taste the same. So we do have some products that we've taken that into consideration where we want to innovate, we want to do some new things with, and the small batch selects I think speak to that. Also, our single barrels are really unique, being able to offer 10 recipes. And granted, that program is super limited, and we've had to break some hearts, but we truly, truly are excited about all 10, and that's given us the allowance to be able to taste each individual recipe. We've also had a lot of wonderful accolades regarding our limited editions, which are, again, different every single year. So every single year, those have different recipes, different ages. It's a different proof. So each year is going to be something new.
And I wanted to learn a little bit more about you. You talked about your bartending and mixology background, and you said this is the dream job for you. But what I always, whenever I interview folks in this industry, particularly bartenders, and and you've had that background, it's like no one said, I've never met someone who's like, oh, when I was 5, I wanted to be a bartender. So tell us a little bit about that journey. What got you into hospitality and mixology? Tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure, sure. So I started on the restaurant side, like I'm sure many of your interviewees have done, and learning about food and drink and pairing, and got really excited about cocktails. I was bartending at this restaurant where I was the only bartender that worked, 5 of the 6 days that we were open. It was a 6-seater bar. It was great. And someone kind of took me under their wing and showed me different spirits and flavor profiles and why it's important to use a jigger. And because I was just, kind of free pouring because all the cocktails were ones that I had done 5 out of 6 days a week, which was great. But it was just really neat to have that educational piece and to have somebody be able to show me and that I could look up to and learn from. And I learned a lot of cocktail knowledge from him. It just so happened that his best friend was also as eager and excited about cocktails and owned another local bar. And he was really into American whiskey. And that got my passion started for American whiskey and putting it into cocktails and learning more and more about it. And so this passion grew working in restaurants and working in bars, and developing these cocktails, incorporating these awesome flavors, of course, learning the classics and building off of those. But I just really developed a passion for it and an excitement for it. And so, having been in Phoenix, which is where I was raised, I moved to San Francisco Bay Area, and it was just a wonderful experience. I worked in some outstanding restaurants there, contributed some wonderful bar programs. The bar community there is wonderful and very supportive of one another. And so it was great. I was able to go out to Kentucky through numerous bartender education programs. And Four Roses was one of the distilleries that I had visited multiple times and was just in love with how they did their bourbons and how transparent they were. So going back to bartending and really getting into the spirit of whiskey and using whiskey in cocktails, it was a very easy decision for me when they developed a position in San Francisco running the on-premise sales side. So bars and restaurants only, which was definitely my forte. And I had worked on the West Coast, growing my role within them to both on and off premise, and then moving both out of California to Northern California, Colorado, and Washington State. And so it's just been an incredible journey, and it has been able to guide me to this position now as the brand ambassador for Four Roses, both coupling, in tandem that history, that background of love and passion for mixology and American whiskey, and with Four Roses.
Amazing. And yeah, I mean, you were very, I think you were very, what's the word I'm looking for? I think you were demure in saying that you worked at a Michelin Star restaurant. I know that was all as real in my research. So I think you're not selling yourself short, but you come like, yeah, we're at some great restaurants. Like she worked at a Michelin Star restaurant. Yeah. So this is high level of cocktail making, obviously. And then working with cocktails and Four Roses. I think, again, many of the people who may watch this video, I know that there's a whiskey community, there's a portion of the whiskey community who is just like whiskey and cocktails sacrilege. How do you, I don't even want to say change those people's minds. How do you build a cocktails and Four Roses that, that you believe continues to evoke the spirit of the spirit, no pun intended, while still making something that is not just straight whiskey for those who may not just want to tell us more?
Sure. I think however you want to enjoy Four Roses is the perfect way for you. If you enjoy it neat or on the rocks or in a classic cocktail, I think that's wonderful. I also think it's great to enjoy our different expressions different ways. So someone might enjoy our Four Roses bourbon in a cocktail, but really like our single barrel neat. All of that is perfectly fine. I think the exciting part for me is when people aren't really excited about bourbon or intimidated by bourbon or think it's going to be overly strong. And then I make them a simple cocktail like a Gold Rush, and they just love it because it's bright and citrusy and refreshing. And so they don't fall to those misconceptions of it being overly powerful. It can really be delicious and mellow. And that's one of the reasons I really like our bourbons, is because they are so approachable. They are very mellow in flavor. And so I think honestly, any way you want to drink it. However, I really like the surprise. I like someone being open to trying a cocktail and then being surprised by it.
Awesome. And then, this Series of Women Whiskey, we started this last year during Women's History Month and wanting to highlight and talk to all these great folks who are in this industry who, might be, again, it's a stereotypical term in some ways, women in whiskey, but the way for this new season that we wanted to start asking questions about being a woman in this industry, rather than kind of what does that mean to you? It's what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago? If you could talk to a younger Abby who is, 10 years junior to you, knowing the trajectory that she's taken, what's the advice that you would give to her or someone like her?
I like that question. That's really cute. I think just continuing to learn and not being shy and trying to connect because everyone's been at that beginner novice level. So to be intimidated by someone that's, at a certain level or in a certain position, I think that, having that approachability and being able to just say, you know what, I'm going to go up and I'm going to talk to them and maybe they'll give me some great advice, or maybe I'll make a new friend, or maybe I'll have a new mentor. And I found that some of the best things that happened to me were in ways that I just said, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to take that move to San Francisco, or I'm going to apply for that bartending competition, or, I'm going to apply for this bartender education program. And it's just all different things that aligned me with other other people that were just as interested that we could collaborate and get excited about. So, advice to me would be, definitely continue in education and the networking and trying to get out there and meet new people in the industry.
Okay. And to that same end, what is, when you think about being a woman in this industry or just, being a woman in the professional world, what is it? Is there a mantra? Is there something that you kind of take with you that you say, all right, is there a mantra? Yeah, I feel like there is a question there, but hopefully you get what I mean. Like, is there something that you set for as a goal or something that you think about every day that kind of sets you on that path to conquer the day?
I mean, getting to be this brand ambassador is just honestly such a dream to be the spokesperson. I think that every day I'm just trying to do my best and trying to do what is best for me and for the company and make it so that I'm an example for other people. I'm always trying to like mentor and teach if anyone's ever wanting that. As far as a mantra, I don't have a particular one in mind, but I mean, just off the cusp, maybe like women can do it too. Like anybody can do it. You just have to have the gumption and the excitement for it.
Cool. And also kind of speaking on the personal side of things, people who are in this industry, in hospitality, in spirits in particular, your job is doing what most people do for fun. How do you find that? What is that work life balance for you? What is that? When we all got to take those time. I'm gonna whether it's try, somebody's doing a dry January or gonna do a 30-day cleanse or whatever. What are those other things that revitalize you, give you perspective, allow you to recharge or reset?
Sure. So I'm a mom of two young children, so that definitely resets me hard. Um,
Absolutely.
so they don't care that I go and travel to different states and talk about Four Roses bourbon. I get home and I'm mom. So that's a good reset. I feel like there's a blend of both work and pleasure in food. I really enjoy the restaurant scene, trying different types of cuisine, cocktail pairings, what's the new trending thing. That's always been really exciting for me. And I think that is an ode to my past in restaurants and trying different delicious fare. So going out to restaurants is great. And then I love to host. I love to have people over to the house. We can cook together. We can have some cocktails together. Like that is a big downtime for me to be able to host people at my home and host friends and have that connection. So I feel like those are some good ways that I tend to reset at the end of the day or end of a work trip where I just get to, throw the mom bun back up and get to be full mom to my toddlers.
Very cool. And you mentioned traveling, so we typically end every interview with a couple fun questions. So since you mentioned traveling and loving food, what is one city that you love? I'm not gonna ask you the rest, so I'm just saying, what is one city that, like, if you could hop on a plane right now, ready to go, and have a culinary experience in that city, what city would that be?
Well, since I moved to Kentucky this summer, I've had a huge craving for Mexican food. So I would say that I would probably do something in Los Angeles or even North Bay again, just to get that craving.
Mhm.
Honestly, though, I love fresh seafood. I've worked in some outstanding Japanese restaurants, so I have a huge appreciation for fresh fish. So I crave a nice sashimi platter from time to time. So I'd say any of those cities, but I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter where. Sometimes you can be so surprised by where you're at. You go to a really wonderful restaurant and just, be like, this is noted. I'm going to try to come back here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally, I mean, just in this, I totally feel that way about cocktails. Two of my favorite cocktail bars are in cities that, yeah, I wouldn't, they're Denver and Las Vegas, and it's off the strip in Las Vegas. So it's like,
Right, right.
you assume, you think New York, you think San Francisco, Chicago, et cetera. But no, yeah, you're absolutely right. You find these amazing experiences in any city you go to. And then our final question, which I think people love and wait. If you could have a pour of Four Roses, let's say it's just a beautiful single barrel, Four Roses single barrel with anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why?
So I think I have two answers to this, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Um,
go for it.
One of them, the obvious, who has passed, is Al Young, who was the brand ambassador, my predecessor. He just had so much knowledge, and a lot of it he experienced firsthand, being at the distillery 50 years. So I would really love the opportunity to pick his brain again. He has passed away. He's been a few years now. And so he's someone that I would love to have a Four Roses cocktail with again. As far as someone that's alive, I would say one of the women that has paved the way for us thus far, and that would probably be Julie Reiner. She's someone that I've met in the past, but I just think that she is a wonderful example of what women can do in our industry. She's ran incredible bar programs in New York. She's an entrepreneur, and in my mind, most importantly, she's a huge educational advocate for the industry. So I think, sharing a cocktail with her would be great. I've also heard that she really enjoys a good bourbon. So that would be it for me. But yeah, just connecting with either one of those people would be wonderful.
Okay, I think those are two very very strong choices. I would thoroughly. I think everyone would thoroughly enjoy both of those choices.
You can join us.
Well, yeah, I mean, say less. I am there. So, Abby, thank you so much for doing this. This has been a pleasure. We've been fans of Four Roses and love the brand and loving what you're bringing to us. So, thank you so much for doing this.